We'll be going over IRS Notice CP131. This is a notice that you might receive from the Internal Revenue Service if you made it some sort of miscalculation on your corporate tax return, and they're telling you that they made an adjustment. So we'll go over what this means, what you may need to be on the lookout for, and any actions that you might be expected to take. But first, let's take a look at some of the important information at the top of the notice. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the notice number, CP131. You'll see that it covers the tax period ending December 31st, 2017. The notice date is January 28th, 2019, and the employer ID number, and then a contact phone number. So it is important to take note of the notice date because any requested action items usually have a certain period of time, a due date that's calculated based on the notice date itself. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the business name and address. You'll want to just quickly review this, make sure that it's accurate. If it's not accurate, you'll want to update your records with the IRS. Normally, they're updated when you file your tax return, but if you're in between tax returns or if you've recently moved, you may want to file the change of address form. So for business owners, that form is IRS Form 8822-B. For business owner or for individuals, it's IRS Form 8822. So let's take a look at what we're actually what the IRS is trying to tell us here. So it looks like we made $954 worth of payments on taxes, a tax liability of $951. There's a failure to pay penalty and interest charges of $1. It all means that there's nothing due. Over here on the left-hand side, it says that you made a miscalculation, which affects your estimated tax deposits. The IRS made those changes, and as a result of the changes, you don't owe us any money, according to the IRS, and you're not due a refund. So if you're expecting a refund, then you may want to take it up with the IRS. However, you don't need to respond to the notice because the IRS is not expecting you to pay them any money. So they may reduce your account balance to zero if you owe something less than $1. So you don't need to send a payment if the IRS tells you please don't send a payment. But if you do disagree, then the IRS does have some things that you should do. First, you should call the number that's posted at the top of the notice. I'll take a brief pause here because I work with people every day, and one thing that I've seen in the summer of 2025 is that due to staffing issues, due to work backlogs, virtually 100% of the people that I've talked to that have received a notice have had a lot of difficulty in reaching the number on that notice. So you may consider some alternatives. They're not pleasant, but calling the IRS 800 number. There's an 800 number for individual taxpayers. There's also an 800 number for business owners. You can do that. You should expect to wait quite some time. You can have your tax professional try to call the IRS. There is an expedited number for tax professionals. Again, this summer, tax pros have been telling me that the response is just as bad there. And finally, you can schedule an appointment at your closest IRS office. So those are just a couple of points to consider, specifically if you call the IRS at their phone number and you can't get a hold of anyone. So basically, if you contact the IRS in writing within 60 days of the date of this notice, they'll reverse the changes that they made to the account. They will consider additional information. You don't need to provide an explanation, but if you don't provide that additional information and they believe that you're wrong, then they're going to forward your case to be audited. In which case, the rest of this section just outlines the audit process. You'll be contacted within 5 to 6 weeks. If you don't contact the IRS within 60 days, the change will not be reversed. So I go back to a previous point about their backlog. Some things that you may consider is if you do decide to respond in writing, you should absolutely make sure that you get some sort of proof of delivery, like a delivery confirmation, either through a private delivery service such as FedEx or UPS, or through the Postal Service, because the IRS has prevailed in certain tax court cases where the taxpayer was not able to prove that the delivery was made in a timely manner. Whether it's tax returns or other correspondence, the burden of proof that you responded within that deadline is on the taxpayer, and the best way to do that is to be able to have a delivery confirmation showing that your correspondence, your tax return, whatever you're sending to the IRS, made it before the due date. So once you have that and you're able to prove that to the IRS, then the ball goes back to them. They have to come up with documentation on why you're not correct. But first, make sure that if you do respond in writing, that you have a way to prove your document got there in a timely manner. So here's a short explanation of what happened. The IRS found that the estimated tax payments shown to the account did not agree with the amount that were claimed on the tax return. There's a breakdown of the IRS calculations, the credits as they were the payments as they were credited to the account, and then a breakdown of failure to pay penalties, as well as verbiage on how you can remove or reduce those penalties. So if you do have penalties that you're debating with the IRS, you can absolutely request that they be abated. The IRS has a couple of ways that you can do that. First, reasonable cause. There's a number of different reasons for a reasonable cause justification. Then there's a program known as first-time abatement, which means if you're considered to have a history of tax compliance, and this is the first time, not necessarily in your lifetime, but first time in a significant while, then you may have your penalty removed under first-time abatement. And then finally, you can request abatement if you received erroneous written advice from the IRS that you used in your tax return. So basically, if you wrote the IRS for advice on a specific issue, you gave the IRS adequate and accurate information, you received a written response, and then you relied on that response for your tax return, and the IRS penalized you, you can submit that request for abatement. You can do that by filing IRS Form 843. In certain circumstances, you can call the IRS and request that abatement over the phone without filing this form. There's a breakdown of how the IRS calculates interest charges. It's much harder for them to abate interest. However, if there's any interest on a penalty that becomes abated or removed, then the IRS will recalculate your interest so that it's not including the interest that was charged on your penalty. There's a verbiage about corporate interest based on corporate interest rates for taxes and outstanding penalties. And then we're down at the bottom of this notice. We're going to go ahead and click on this link to the IRS website just to see if there's any additional information. I think we've covered most of the bases, but there are a couple of frequently asked questions. There are also links to other relevant sources of information, such as the IRS publications. And then tips for next year, how you can avoid making this mistake in the future. So again, most people don't receive this kind of a notice. So if you do, it's important to pay attention to it, because you have a limited period of time to respond based on, at least in this case, 60 days from this notice date. So if you disagree with it, you now understand the actions that you should take to make sure that the IRS receives your feedback. So I think that's all we have for this video. We'll put links in the show notes to the articles and the videos that we've created on tax forms mentioned here. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, or if there's a question that you have that you'd like to see covered in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.